What is up everyone, and welcome to some more F1 24 driver career mode. And it is time for round number 7 of our Formula 2 season, and we are at the Circuit Barcelona Catalunya for the Spanish Grand Prix. Very excited about this one. This is a track that typically always goes pretty well for me in Formula 1 career modes. I'm never the fastest man on track, but I am usually right up there in the mix. It's usually a place where I can score good consistent points, and I'm hoping that this weekend will be more of the same. If you're wondering why I was 9 seconds off the pace in practice, it's because there is currently a bit of a glitch in Formula 2, which means that you're not allowed to go out in a practice session on wet tyres. So I had no choice but to go out on the hard compound tyres. And yeah, that was a bit of a struggle, but fortunately it's going to be dry for the rest of the weekend, so we don't have to worry about wet tyres or dry tyres, wet track I should say. So we should be okay to hopefully be a bit more competitive in qualifying now that the rain has all dried up. And here we are now on our first flying lap of the weekend. I'm hoping to build on what was a pretty decent performance last time out, and yeah, it was the Monaco Grand Prix. We finished P10 in the sprint race, but obviously, you know, it's quite difficult to overtake at Monaco. We did try our best, but we couldn't get it done. And fortunately, we were starting on pole for the feature race, and we managed to convert that one into the victory. So we picked up another 25 points there. We're leading the championship by over 50 points now as we approach the halfway mark. At the end of this race weekend, we will be halfway through the Formula 2 season. So yeah, I'm looking forward to hopefully extending our championship lead a bit further here maybe, and seeing what we can do. We're currently in P10, so if we qualify here it wouldn't be the end of the world, because we will get that sprint pole and hopefully be able to fight for the victory in the sprint race. But you know, I still want more obviously, and I am pushing pretty hard on what is now a used set of soft compound tyres, because of course you can only use one set of tyres throughout the entirety of qualifying here in Formula 2. So the fact that I was finding as much improvement as I was honestly very, very encouraging. You can see we've improved by nearly 0.3 of a second as we cross the line. It's a 1:24.7, and that, surprisingly, is good enough for pole position. So we've picked up yet another pole and have a chance now to gun for the victory in the feature race instead.
It's time to leave for now, but we'll be back tomorrow when the feature race gets itself underway.
Yep, so we managed to out-qualify Kushmaini there, a pretty decent performance from myself. 0.08 of a second is the gap to the Campos driver, and it's his teammate that's at the very back of the grid in P22, 0.8 off of the pace. So yeah, a bit of a hiding going on in Campos right now. Brad Benavides will have the sprint pole meanwhile, so we have a good chance to extend our team's championship lead as well, and we'll see what we can do as we get into the sprint for the Spanish Grand Prix.
So it's all about speed in today's sprint race then. Not very many laps and no chance to get ahead on strategy. Who here today has the raw skill to take them to the top? It's back to the future for the F2 drivers today. We welcome the removal of the chicane in the final sector. It will shorten lap times and reduce the length to 2.9 miles, 14 turns. This was the original setup of the track, but it hasn't been used since 2007. And we welcome you to the Formula 2 commentary box. I'm Alex Jakes. Alongside me for this one, Alex Brundle. It is a sprint race. It is race day. How much can you take from that one-lap pace in to our multi-lap contest today?
Well, you've got the grid reversed, giving some drivers who wouldn't normally get it the opportunity to take a win or a podium home. They're going to be looking to snatch that opportunity if at all possible.
So we will be going on a set of hard compound tyres to the end of the sprint. Obviously, no mandatory pit stop here, and realistically, a pit stop isn't the way to go apart from at very high tyre degradation tracks. For example, I could see a case for making a pit stop in a sprint in the Qatar Grand Prix, possibly, because that is an incredibly high deg track. This track, honestly, for the compound of tyres that have been brought here, it is a reasonably high deg track. You know, we're doing 13 laps around here, and the hards can only do 16 laps supposedly, so they will be pretty wrecked by the end, and we're gonna have to watch out for that. But as we line up on the grid now, it is all going to be about the getting into the points. That's the aim today. If I can get at least a couple positions made up, maybe even more than that, hopefully we'll be able to score a few championship points. But we'll see what we can do now as the lights come on. and the lights go out, and once again it was a very long hold. I'm wondering if this is an F124 thing or a Formula 2 thing, but either way it doesn't matter. We've had a decent getaway there, and we've pulled ourselves alongside Kushmaini and hopefully making our way up now into P9. However, I always get a bit sort of nervous and apprehensive in the first few corners of a race. You know, I don't want to smash into the back of anyone, so we kind of take that one a bit conservatively. We have a Code Brown moment there as I tried to move to the inside of the corner to see if I could get up the inside of Kushmaini, and what actually happened was I turned across Théo Pourchaire and very nearly you know, put myself in the wall and out of the race. So we were quite lucky to manage to hold position off the back of a moment like that. And now we're actually attacking Kushmaini once again, and I think we maybe have made this position. By the time that we get to the corner, we are ahead of him, and yeah, that is P9 taken, and now we only need to make up one more position on his compatriot Jehan Daruvala here, and if we can do that, then we will be getting up into the top 8 and scoring those coveted points that I'm looking for. Meanwhile, Brad Benavides is still holding on to the lead here, I believe, in the other PHM car, so he's doing pretty well. We'll see if he can go the entire 13 laps. He's got, you know, not the fastest drivers that you would expect competing with him for the victory today. I believe it is Jack Crawford who is currently running in P2. So I'd say Benavides actually has a pretty decent shot of doing this. However, they do have to watch out for Frederick Vesti, who is currently running in P3, because he has already shown some pretty good glimpses of pace earlier in the season, and I wouldn't be surprised if you know, he does try and gun for that sprint race victory here today. So as we make our way onto lap 2, we are looking pretty good here right now, but obviously we are still going to need to be you know, decisive if we want to make our way into the points. And I mean, as you can see, as we make our way into lap number 5, we still haven't managed to make up this position. We are kind of just chilling in P9 right now, and the DRS train is in full effect, so it's getting more and more difficult to make this work. You can see there I had an objective to save fuel, but unfortunately I didn't quite manage to achieve it, just because you know, I was trying to push to stay with Jehan Daruvala. However, I'm also having to lift and coast into most of these corners, so it is a bit of a balancing act right now. The fuel definitely was going to run out if I kept pushing at the level I was, and it still might, to be perfectly honest with you. You can see it's still going further and further away as we make our way onto lap 9 now. You can see that the fuel is at 0.15 over the target, so I think it's going to be, you know, pretty difficult to keep the fuel in a positive range. We're going to have to really increase the amount of lift and coast we're doing, be really gentle on the throttle on the exit of corners, and you can see I've also got an objective now to overtake Jehan Daruvala before lap number 12. We've moved on to lap number 11 now, and I still haven't made it past him, so I am desperately running out of time. And I think on the exit of that corner you can tell that I'm not really close enough to think about going for a move here. However, I just said screw it, I might as well go for a move, and to my surprise I actually managed to make it very cleanly up the inside of Jehan Daruvala, so we make our way into the points, and well, things could get better from here. We will see whether we can make up any more positions as we make our way now onto the final lap of the race. And it is Richard Verschoor directly ahead of us. 0.4 of a second is the gap at the moment. Obviously, I'm having to lift. I was lifting by about the 200 board, so that just gives you an idea of how much lift and coast I was having to do. I think we're going to be pretty comfortable here. We should hopefully be able to keep our fuel in a positive range no matter what, but I will be pushing quite hard because I do want to try and get ahead of Richard Verschoor. Unfortunately, I just kind of misjudged the send I was going for around the outside of the VAR driver, so we're going to have to try again here. And as I turn into the corner, I just again slightly misjudged it. It was really difficult. You can see how worn the tyres are. Obviously, I was partially thinking about the fuel as well, so all of those factors in unison was what ended up sending me into the back of Richard Verschoor and ultimately getting that front wing damage. So I think we can say goodbye to any chance of moving higher than P7. And honestly, now as we exceed track limits there, it's going to be more about making sure we can keep Jehan Daruvala behind rather than seeing if we can get ahead of Richard Verschoor. Meanwhile, it looks like Frederick Vesti is leading the race from what I can tell, so it will not be a first win in Formula 2 for Brad Benavides here today, but you know, he was very close to achieving it. He was right up there in the mix the entire time. Meanwhile, if you look in the bottom right, you can see my fuel is desperately dying away, and we will be entering low fuel mode very shortly. But fortunately, it won't matter as we cross the line to take P8 here in the sprint. And yeah, one singular championship point today, and hopefully we'll be able to score some more big points in the feature race tomorrow. But yeah, overall, made up a couple of positions, can't be too disappointed with that, and there is now scope for us to bag some big points.
So another excellent win from Prema.
It might not be the same points as the feature race, but it is the same podium, and they get to wave at the fans from it.
As we look back on a thrilling race here today, we can now see the drivers take their places on the podium. It's a familiar sight by now, as it's another successful F2 win for Prema.
Well, any American fans that have woken up especially early to watch this race will not be disappointed, as there are two Americans on the podium. It is the Dane of Frederik Vesti, of course, standing on the top step, but Brad Benavides and Jack Crawford, two American drivers, getting themselves onto the podium as well. And yeah, some good points for PHM today.
After all this drama, you'd be mad not to join us for the next race. We hope to see you then. Take care.
So, just looking down the order, Ayumu Iwasa in 17th is, you know, something I do like to see. Jahan Daruvula as well, obviously not scoring any points. Victor Martins did finish 6th, I believe. These are the drivers who are, you know, sort of closest to me in the championship fight, as it were. So, yeah, that is something obviously I've been looking out for, just making sure that none of them are, you know, massively closing the gap to me in the championship or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, 1 point is not maybe exactly what I would have wanted, but you have to, you know, take things with a grain of salt. We are on 99 AI difficulty. It's pretty tough. This is basically the maximum pace that these cars can go, because I think something I heard was like after 100, there's like they don't actually make the cars faster per se, or the drivers faster. It's just about improving things like traction and tire wear and stuff like that. So it's like their control through the corners and stuff like that is a bit more gentle, and as a result they're able to conserve pace rather than increasing their overall pace, if that makes sense. I don't really understand entirely how it works. I had someone from my Twitch stream explain it to me once, but that was a while ago, so it's kind of gone out of my memory since then. But yeah, a good podium there for Brad Benavides and for Jack Crawford, to be fair. He's having a really tough season. I've always kind of felt for Jack Crawford a little bit in real life, because he is someone who I feel like very much felt the weight of expectation on him. You know, he was this sort of American driver who everyone was kind of placing their expectations on after he had a quite promising career when he was very young. I think he got promoted into Formula 3 when he was like 15 or something like that, which is, you know, you think about what you were doing when you were 15, that's kind of nuts, and it's happening more and more recently, and I honestly don't know how these kids really cope with this feeling of, you know, they are being placed under so much scrutiny at such a young age. So for Jack Crawford to come through and bag a podium in Formula 2, of course he has done so in real life as well, so this does apply to a real life context as well. But yeah, for Jack Crawford to come through and get a podium, I think just shows a lot of resilience and a lot of ability to perform under a significant amount of pressure. For us, however, the pressure is well and truly on now, as the feature race is about to get underway, so we will see what we can do as we get into that race.
Welcome to the Circuit of Barcelona Catalunya here in Spain for what is expected to be a very closely contested race. It's back to the future for the F2 drivers today. We welcome the removal of the chicane in the final sector. It will shorten lap times and reduce the length to 2.9 miles, 14 turns. This was the original setup of the track, but it hasn't been used since 2007. With that then, let's run through the grid order. Robinson lines up on pole position, with Kush Maini alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Daruvula, Verschoor, Victor Martins, Behrman, Novalak, Vesti, Crawford, Brad Benavides, Pourchaire, Correa, Dennis Hauger, Roman Stanek, Cordial, Maloney, Iwasa, Jack Doohan, Fittipaldi, Hadjar, Leclerc, and Ralph Boschung completes the grid. And with preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track. It is the Formula 2 race. It is time to introduce you to Alex Brundle. I'm Alex Jakes, and we've got changeable weather out there today. That's making for some nervous team personnel down in the paddock, down in the pit lane.
There are going to be some quivering hands on the tyre guns, aren't there, when they tighten up what could easily be the wrong specification of tyre completely for the conditions. It's a gamble out there.
Once again, we've got fake changeable weather conditions here, and yeah, I mean, this is not going to be an easy feature race by any stretch of the imagination. You know, Monaco, it was pretty straightforward. It's a ridiculously difficult track to overtake at. Once I had that pole position in the bag, I was like, right, here we go, 25 points, just like that. And indeed, it was exactly as straightforward as I expected it to be. Here, however, in this feature race, things are going to be a lot more complicated, in no small part due to the fact that that issue with the fuel that we had in the sprint will almost certainly be a factor here in the feature race as well. Now, I know that you are probably looking at that and thinking, well, how can you possibly predict such a thing? And the reason why is because the fuel load in Formula 2 is fixed. I can't change it. If I could, obviously I would add more fuel to the car to make sure that we're not in danger of running out of fuel or anything like that. But we can't, so we are probably going to have to do a lot of fuel management from very early on in this race if we want any hope of getting it done. But now we will see what we can do as the lights come on and the lights go out. And I think we've had a pretty good getaway there compared to Kush Maini. He was a little bit slow off the line. He could be coming under a bit of pressure here from his compatriot Jahan Daruvala, who in the MP Motorsport car is going to look for a move into P2 and maybe try and take another win here in this Formula 2 season. He has you know, been one of the biggest contenders here. A bit of a surprise package, to be honest, Jahan Daruvala, because he never really lived up to the potential that I feel like he had throughout his... I want to say he was in Formula 2 for 4 years, you know, I think from 2020 to 2023, if I remember correctly. So 4 seasons he contested Formula 2, and you know, he was always decent, but unfortunately I think he just kind of lacked the consistency that was needed for him to sort of be considered to get into Formula 1. But you know, a lot of really fast drivers on this grid who will be absolutely gunning for the victory here today, including Kush Maini, who has managed to hold on to P2, and I would not be surprised in the slightest if he goes for a few overtakes during the course of this race. All we can hope is that we can stay with him enough that we can maybe sort of back and forth with him over the course of the race. But like I said, we will have to be doing some serious lift and coast during this race just to get to the end, quite frankly, because you can see the fuel remaining thing has already gone down by about 0.2 over the course of 1 lap when I've been actually pushing on this lap. So yeah, we're going to have to really save the fuel as much as we can over basically the entire remainder of the race. It is not going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination, but you know, that is why, or that is something, I suppose, that can indicate that we might be ready for Formula 1. We might be Formula 1 material. You know, that is the difference between a driver who is, you know, still sort of gaining that experience and still working out how to, you know, manage a longer race versus somebody who has kind of got it cracked and got it worked out. Kush Maini does make his way up into P1 for the time being, but I'm hoping that we might be able to get him back at some point. Meanwhile, I believe Jahan Daruvala made contact with our rear there. You didn't really see it, but as we get to the end of lap number 4 now, you can see he's peeling into the pits, assumedly due to some kind of damage or something like that. I don't know what happened to him to cause that to happen, but yeah, I'm guessing maybe when we coasted into the first corner, maybe he wasn't expecting us to lift off the throttle and kind of just misjudged his move on us or something, because he was attacking us a little bit. Meanwhile, we've managed to make our way back past Kush Maini through turn 1, DRS helping us out quite significantly there, and it's kind of turned into a bit of a 2-horse race here, at least for the time being, because Jahan Daruvala getting that damage, he held up everybody behind him by about 4 seconds compared to myself and Kush Maini. So yeah, he is he's kind of done us a bit of a favour there, and, well, potentially done his compatriot a bit of a favour, saying if I can't win the race, I'll try and do my best to win it for you. So, yeah, we have to try and do everything we can now to stop Kushmaini from winning this one if we possibly can. And as we make our way onto lap number 7 now, you can see that we are still just kind of tucked in behind him, and we've now been set an objective to try and save our fuel as best we can. And you can see I really have not managed this particularly well. I was trying as well. I was trying to lift and coast, but for some reason I was burning fuel even more in this race than I was in the previous one. This is something that has kind of not really been a thing up until the last few races, and now since Imola it's like really been a thing, you know. Like in Monaco it kind of was a thing, not really, but it was a little bit. Here in Spain it's been a huge thing though, and I very much am looking forward to hopefully making it into Formula 1, where we can have adjustable fuel loads, and if I need to overfuel the car, I can. I think a large part, as we come into the pit lane for the hard compound tyres, I think a large part of the reason why we have been struggling on the fuel maybe a little bit is because there actually have been no safety cars or red flags in any of these videos so far. You know, this is the 7th race weekend. This is now the 14th race of the season that we have done, and there's not been a single safety car in any of those, despite the fact that I am on increased safety cars, increased red flags. Basically anything that can be increased is, you know, we've got high technical faults. We did just fail an objective to save fuel, which is not great. Yeah, high technical faults, all that kind of thing. Basically everything that can be increased to spice up the races a little bit has been increased, and yet despite that I'm pretty confident there hasn't even been a DNF. Not even just for me, but for anyone in any of these 14 races. Now, I know that obviously this is a spec series, but unreliability has still always been a thing in Formula 2 that can happen, and we have seen happen. You know, I remember there was one race, I think it was during the pandemic, where like 8 people DNF'd in the same race or something like that due to unreliability. This was in Formula 2. So I don't really see how, you know, they can not have a single DNF as Kushmaini makes his way back past us. We did temporarily undercut him, but he has now made his way back into P1 for the time being. We'll see what we can do to stay with him. But yeah, so it is a little bit of a bizarre one, I think, and I'm hoping that you know, maybe things will get spiced up a bit in the second half of the season. But I mean, nobody's even crashed out, to be honest. You know, I know that AI mistakes are a bit more of a thing, but despite the fact that we are on simulation damage, nobody has even crashed so heavily that it's broken their car or anything like that. So I don't know if these cars are just particularly sturdy, but even then I'm not really seeing the drivers make such a critical mistake that gives them damage or anything like that. That is also a fairly rare occurrence here in this season of Formula 2. So overall, just kind of surprising a little bit. We passed an objective there to achieve an average lap time of 1:28.4. We just about met it. I think we were only a few tenths over it on average. And as we lift into turn 1 once again, that allows Kushmaini to get back past us. I tell you what, that looked like I was letting him through almost. Such was the nature of how you know, how much I gave that up. But we had to, just to save fuel. You can see we are now officially in the red zone. We are over on our fuel usage by 0.13, and there are still a couple laps left to go. So I think that we are going to run out of fuel before the end here. And I was kind of, you know, I was lifting and coasting through every corner, but there was just absolutely nothing I could do to make my fuel go back up, you know, to make the amount of fuel we had per lap go up in terms of what we had. And so it means that we go into the final lap now with 0.8 laps of fuel on the car, which means that we are going to run out of fuel. Basically, there's nothing I can do. No matter how much I lift and coast, I can't lift and coast to the point that we can save 0.2 laps of fuel in the space of 80% of a lap. I just can't do it. I just can't do it. So we are going to run out of fuel no matter what happens, and we're just going to have to hope that the impact of us running out of fuel is not so severe that we lose out on a ton of positions. I think the race win, we can basically kiss goodbye to that, and all we can hope for is that we can just maybe cling on to a podium here or something. But I mean, the gap to all the cars behind now, because of how much I've been lifting and coasting here, is really close. You know, there is not a situation here where they're not going to catch me or something like that. They absolutely will. We could potentially even fall out of the points if the cars behind are particularly opportunistic. We're really just going to have to see what the situation or how the situation unfolds. As you can see now, we are in low fuel mode. We have run out of fuel. There is basically no fuel left on board, and Kush Miney now is going to go for a move into P1. I told you there was no way we were winning this race. Richard Verschoor, he's made his way up into P2. I am pushing as hard as I possibly can. Victor Martins has come through for P3, so we've been kicked off the podium. But to my surprise, nobody else went for a move here, despite how slow I was running to the finish line. We cross it at a snail's pace, and somehow we take P4. Don't ask me how, because absolutely the likes of Behrman, Crawford, all of those guys that were behind me should, and really, you know, I don't know how they didn't overtake me, but we have held on to take P4.
And an incredible win for Campos. Brilliant performance.
Well, it's the team's local track, and you'd think that'd give them a little bit of an advantage, but they put on a show for the fans out there today who will be checking in on their progress.
It's time to present the top drivers with their trophies for today's race, and there are a lot of people in the paddock very happy with this result. It's Campos on the top step.
Well, that is at least a nice story. I suppose that Campos, of course, are a Spanish team, and they have won on the team's home soil. Very good for them. Flanked on the podium, Kush Miney is by Richard Verschoor, once again making his way onto the podium. He's actually having a very strong season, and Victor Martins too, making his way onto the podium. But in the end, we just couldn't hold on to it, and we have to settle for P4.
There will be plenty more twists and turns to come this season. I hope you'll join us at the next race when Formula 2 returns.
Now, you'll have to forgive me once again because I have committed the cardinal sin of forgetting to show the standings at the end of the race. It just completely slipped my mind once again. It's even worse than that, actually, because when I was retrieving the footage for the highlights, which you can see now, I realised I hadn't showed the standings, and I was like, okay, it's fine. Once the highlights are over, I will just go and get the standings there, and then I'll, you know, chop up the video a bit to show the standings before we go into the highlights, and it will be absolutely fine. And then I forgot again, and just ended up not showing the standings at all. So I mean, yeah, I think we are leading the championship by more than we were leading it before, because Ayumu Iwasa was the closest driver to us, and I believe that we outscored most of the drivers that we were sort of battling with. Other than that, or at least they didn't outscore us so much that it would sort of lower my championship lead. So I reckon, based on my estimations, I think my championship lead is around the same amount that it was before. I think it's about 50 points. There you go. There's a confirmation that Jahan Daruvala did get the damage on the back of us. He just crashed straight into the back of us when he was going for a move on us. So that explains why he was so slow from that point with the front wing damage. But yeah, Victor Martins, obviously, he was right up there. Jahan Daruvala was right up there, but obviously we won't have to worry about him. I think Verschoor is kind of involved in the championship fight as well. So I think, yeah, if I had to guess, I think that I'm still about 50 points ahead of the nearest driver, despite the fact that we did fall from the win. So goodness knows where we would have been if not for the running out of fuel at the end of the race. That was a bit devastating, but ultimately I think it's not going to make too much of a difference in the grander scheme of things. I actually don't know what the next race is. I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it's Silverstone, but don't quote me on that. It would be it'd be a pretty good time to go to Silverstone. You know, we're in a really good run of form. Yes, obviously this was a bit of a tough race, but as long as we don't have any more of these weird fuel issues we keep having, we should be more than capable of getting a good result in Silverstone. Probably at least one win, I would imagine. Yes, obviously, you know, things are difficult at the moment, and of course, Silverstone is a track on this year's calendar that has undergone somewhat dramatic changes, actually. They've really made a change to the undulation of the track and all that kind of thing. So it is a bit different to how it was in last year's game, but despite that, I think we still have a pretty good chance of getting a good result there. It is one of my stronger tracks typically in a Formula 1 game. It has been for many years. It doesn't seem to change too much between each game, but maybe the updates could be the difference maker, and maybe I will now be completely washed around that circuit. I don't know, but either way, I think we've done a pretty good job this weekend of showing that we are able to sort of be resilient in the face of adverse conditions, and that is going to be it for this video. So if you enjoyed, please make sure you like and subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.